we've been having this conversation for 2 days about how Trump was not, it was as though he didn't exist last night.
Yeah.
And Eugene made this point yesterday. If the number one animating feeling and thought among Democrats, all Democrats, and I would argue some Republicans and independents, is to get rid of Donald Trump, to make sure he's a one-term presidency if impeachment doesn't work out. It was surprising that the strategic decision was made last night not to invoke his name.
Absolutely.
That was not the case tonight. Just talk about why you think that is and how that made tonight feel different. Tonight felt different.
Definitely. I mean, I got the sense the first night of the debate that the candidates had decided, other than Julian Castro, that the goal was to introduce themselves to the country and that it was all about introduction and telling people who they are, rather than demonstrating, here is what it would look like if I took on Donald Trump. I think Julian Castro did have a smart strategy last night. He understood his lane and he understood Super Tuesday has Texas in it. Only one of those two Texas candidates can emerge victorious. Two of them cannot survive in the race. And so he decided to go after Beto O'Rourke with guns blazing. And I think it was a smart strategy because there's only so much room and oxygen for all these candidates. Tonight, I think that the strategy was a lot smarter. I thought the candidates understood. They mentioned Trump a lot, and they understood that this is a base election coming up. Claire and I disagree on this. This is a re-elect. It's very difficult to dislodge a sitting president. I don't care how low Donald Trump's approval numbers are. Understand he's in the strong position. What you need to dislodge a sitting president is Barack Obama level passion and turnout among base voters. And what is it that the base wants? They want to see somebody fight Donald Trump. What did Republican voters want? Why did they even like Donald Trump? They want to see somebody fight Washington like a junkyard dog. Trump said, I'll do that. He demonstrated he'd fight immigrants, he'd fight brown people, he'd fight Muslims. They wanted to see him pummel the right people. That's why Donald Trump was effective. And so I think tonight, Kamala Harris did two things that were really smart. She took on Trump. She demonstrated, she said, this is what it would look like if I took him on. Here I am in my prosecutorial guise, taking him on for you and showing the base, okay, checking that off. And she took on Biden. You got to take on the front runner. You have to have the courage to go after the guy who's got huge support among the same voters she needs. Black voters.
I agree with your theory on the case. The way to take out an incumbent is to make it a referendum on his incumbency. I wonder, though, if Biden isn't also in a similarly strong place because he gives Democrats the hope or the prospect that he could reassemble that very animated, very vast Obama coalition.
But here's the thing. You can't necessarily assemble the Barack Obama coalition if you're not Barack Obama. Hillary Clinton had the same theory of the case, that you start with the Obama coalition and build from there. She was looking at Arizona and looking around. That's not true because there is a sui generis candidate.
I remember that news cycle.
Right? Yeah.
Look at Arizona. What?
Yeah. They're like, we're going to go hunting because they just assumed we take in all the Obama voters. They are checked off. We're going to get them and add. They're not Barack Obama. And Joe Biden is Barack Obama's bestie, and a lot of voters feel a nostalgia for the Obama era, and they're riding with him right now. But I think he might misunderstand that they're not riding with him just because of nostalgia for Barack Obama. They're riding with him because they think only a white guy can beat Donald Trump, and he's the white guy that can do it. The second he's not the guy who can take down Donald Trump, like he loses Iowa or New Hampshire, or he shows vulnerability, or he gets taken down by somebody like Kamala Harris, those voters go shopping.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.